The room fell silent, every eye locked on one man. Nigel Farage rose in Parliament, and what he said next sent shockwaves through Westminster. No hesitation, no fear, just 5 words that changed everything. Call a general election now. The establishment froze. Labour MPs shifted uncomfortably. Tory benches went dead quiet because Farage didn't just speak to Parliament, he spoke for millions of Brits who've been ignored, betrayed and lied to for far too long. And the numbers prove he's right. If this is the awakening you've been waiting for, hit subscribe. This story is just beginning. Reform UK is now leading Britain, not trailing, not tied, leading. The latest polls show Reform at 30%, Labour at 22%, and the Conservatives collapsing at 21%. For the first time in modern British history, a true outsider party is dominating the political landscape. And Keir Starmer has no answer. Farage looked directly at the Prime Minister and delivered a brutal truth. You have no mandate, no credibility, and no connection to the people you claim to represent. The silence that followed was deafening because everyone in that chamber knew he was right. Starmer's Labour government didn't win a mandate. They inherited voter exhaustion and tactical voting. Nothing more. But this wasn't just about poll numbers. Farage went for the jugular. He called out the Chagos Islands betrayal, a strategic military territory in the Indian Ocean, handed over without public consultation, without debate and without explanation. British sovereignty traded away behind closed doors while Starmer smiled for international cameras. This is not leadership, Farage thundered. This is surrender. The Chagos decision exposed everything wrong with modern British politics. Billions in taxpayer money gone, military positioning sacrificed. And for what? So Starmer could virtue signal to Brussels and the UN? Farage called it what it is, a shameful act of cowardice from a government more interested in pleasing foreign bureaucrats than protecting British interests. Labour MPs had no response. They sat frozen, unable to defend the indefensible. Meanwhile, Reform benches erupted in applause because someone finally said what working class Britain has been screaming for years. Our leaders don't serve us, they serve themselves and their globalist friends. And the public is paying attention. In towns where Labour once dominated, Reform banners now fly. In communities the Tories took for granted, Farage's message is resonating. This isn't a protest vote anymore. This is a movement, a working class rebellion against decades of broken promises, empty rhetoric and political betrayal. The numbers tell the story. Energy bills crushing families, the NHS in crisis, crime rising, borders overwhelmed, veterans ignored, pensioners freezing because winter fuel payments were slashed while billions get sent overseas. This is Starmer's Britain, cold, chaotic and increasingly angry. Farage didn't mince words. Labour talks about progress while dismantling everything that made Britain strong. They mock patriotism, they ignore the working class, they sign away our land and tell us it's for the greater good. Every sentence landed like a hammer blow because it's true, and millions of Brits feel it every single day. But here's what terrifies Westminster. Reform UK isn't just rising in polls, they're building infrastructure, recruiting candidates and preparing for government. This isn't a fringe movement anymore, it's a legitimate political force with grassroots momentum the establishment can't control. The media tried to kill it with smears. They called Farage divisive, dangerous, far right. But the labels aren't working. Because people aren't listening to headlines anymore. They're listening to their bank accounts, their energy bills, and the crime statistics in their neighbourhoods. Reality doesn't care about spin. And the reality is this. Labour and the Conservatives have lost the country. Combined, they're polling under 45%. Two parties that once dominated British politics are now in free fall. Why? Because they offer the same solutions, the same excuses, and the same betrayals. Different tasks, lies. Farage represents something different. Whether you love him or hate him, he's saying what millions think but are afraid to say. He's challenging the consensus that's driven Britain into the ground. And he's doing it without apology. Starmer's response to all of this? Silence, deflection, corporate jargon about international obligations and legal frameworks. But the public isn't stupid. They see through the buzzwords. They know when they're being gaslighted. And they're done with leaders who speak in focus group tested sound bites instead of plain English. This moment in Parliament wasn't just political theatre. It was a declaration. The old system is broken. The two-party stranglehold is crumbling. And a new force is rising from the anger, frustration and determination of ordinary Brits who refuse to be ignored any longer. Farage's demand for a general election isn't just about timing. It's about legitimacy. Starmer's government is governing without a real mandate. They're making massive decisions, signing away territory and changing Britain's future without asking permission from the people who will live with the consequences. And those people are watching. They're organising. They're voting. From Birmingham to Blackpool, Newcastle to Norwich, a political earthquake is building. Not in Westminster's corridors, but in living rooms, pubs and town halls across the country. Places politicians forgot existed until reform reminded them. The panic in establishment circles is real. Labour strategists are scrambling. Tory MPs are whispering about extinction because they've seen this pattern before. Parties that lose touch with their base don't just lose elections. They disappear. And right now, both Labour and the Conservatives are standing on the edge of political irrelevance. Reform UK topped the polls not through slick marketing or big money. They did it by speaking to people the system abandoned. The small business owners taxed into oblivion. The pensioners choosing between heating and eating. The young workers priced out of housing. The parents watching their communities change beyond recognition while being told to stay silent. These are the new political army. And they're not asking for permission anymore. They're demanding accountability. They're demanding leaders who put Britain first. And they're demanding a general election to prove whether Parliament represents them or just itself. Farage's speech was the match. But the fuel has been building for years. Every broken promise, every backroom deal. Every time a politician said one thing to get elected and did another once in power. Every time the establishment dismissed legitimate concerns as bigotry or ignorance. All of it created the powder keg that's now exploding. And make no mistake, this is an explosion, not a gentle shift, not a temporary blip. This is a fundamental realignment of British politics. The centre is collapsing. The extremes the establishment fears aren't on the fringes anymore. They're mainstream. Because when the centre repeatedly fails, people look elsewhere. Starmer represents everything wrong with modern politics. A technocrat who thinks governance is about process, not people. A manager who confuses compliance with leadership. A politician so afraid of offending anyone that he stands for nothing. That hollowness was on full display when Farage challenged him. No fire, no conviction. Just empty eyes and emptier words. Britain deserves better. Whether Reform UK is the answer remains to be seen. But what's undeniable is this. The old answer isn't working. Labour failed, the Conservatives failed, and now millions of British are ready to try something new. Something that actually acknowledges their existence and their concerns. Farage ended his speech with a warning. Britain doesn't belong to Parliament, it belongs to the people. And the people are taking it back. Those words echoed far beyond Westminster. They echoed in every household, struggling with bills, every veteran feeling forgotten, every citizen watching their country change and wondering if anyone in power even cares. The establishment hoped this moment would pass, that reform would fade like UKIP before it. But something's different this time. The anger runs deeper. The betrayal feels more personal and the alternative finally feels viable. So here's what happens next. If Starmer refuses to call an election, the pressure builds. Every policy failure becomes ammunition. Every tone-deaf response proves Farage's point. Every week that passes with reform leading the polls undermines Labour's legitimacy. And if there is an election, that's when we find out if this is real. If reform can convert polling into seats, if Farage can turn a movement into a government, if Britain is truly ready to blow up the system and start over. Either way, one thing is certain. British politics will never be the same. The two-party cartel is broken. The establishment consensus is shattered. And millions of ordinary Brits who were told to sit down and shut up are standing up and speaking out. Farage didn't create this anger. He just gave it a voice that's getting louder, stronger.
In the biggest democratic exercise in the history
the old guard can mock it, smear it or ignore it, but they can't stop it. Because when enough people decide the system is broken, no amount of spin can hold it together. Westminster is learning that lesson right now. Painfully, publicly, and far too late. The room fell silent for a reason. Because truth, when spoken clearly and fearlessly, has power. And Farage spoke a truth that millions have been living, but no one in Parliament dared say. This government has failed. This system has failed. And the people are done waiting for permission to demand better. Reform UK is no longer knocking on Westminster's door. They're preparing to kick it down. And judging by the polls, by the rallies, and by the raw anger powering this movement, they just might succeed. If you want to see how this historic moment unfolds, subscribe and stay ahead of the story. Because what happens next will define Britain for a generation. Drop a comment with your take. Are you team reform or do you think this is just political theatre? Let's talk.